Hi everyone, this is Mark from Agricultural Data Systems, and I'm here to show you the new version of DataTrack and how it works. So we'll start by double-clicking on the icon on the desktop for DataTrack, and upon starting up, you'll have a login screen with a default user called admin. There's no password for this user, so we'll just click login. You'll notice a few different things here. You have a chart that shows you number of records per device, and then over on the left, you have the different menus that you can go into. This chart will show you the number of records that came in from each device that you have. Now this can be touch probes, mini probes, Cipher Lab handhelds, or Android phones. And a record is essentially a scan. So this is just a quick overview of what data has come in for today. And then over on the top left is your username. If you click on it, you'll have some other options that you can go into, such as setting preferences for your user, managing other users, such as adding users or editing users. We can check for updates, look at information on your system, and then if you need to send data to us to look at, you can just go through the Send Data to ADS menu, and then of course log out. And the buttons over here, if you've used the old version of DataTrack, you'll see some familiar names. In badge setup, you will be allowed to add or edit employees or profile elements, which vary depending on the system that you have. You may have crews, jobs, ranches, locations, and then edit scans is where you can go in to edit the raw data that has come from your data collection devices. Data entry is another way of editing. It's a little more straightforward than edit scans, where instead of having to edit each scan line by line, you can just edit it from a larger view by just editing the total amount of time, the total amount of pieces, start time and end time, and we'll get into the rest of these a little bit later. So for now, let's start with badge setup. Here in badge setup, the first tab you will be shown is the employees tab. And then over here in this list are all of your employees that you have in the system, their name, their ID number, and the number of badges they have. Over here to the right is the actual badge that is assigned to that person. If you wanted to add an additional badge to a person, you can just click on Assign Badge down here. To add a brand new employee that isn't already in the system, you can start by clicking the Add Employee button at the bottom left, and then type in the person's name and their employee ID number, which pertains to your accounting software. And if you have an employee badge for the person, you can type in that number here. If not, you can leave it blank and assign it later. For now, we'll just assign one and then click Add. And then once you add them, you'll see that badge over here on the right that we assigned. And if you want to assign them an additional badge, you can just click on Assign Badge and then just type in the number of the badge and then Add. And you'll see it adds a second badge to that person. And over here, it says that person has 2 badges now. If you wanted to remove a badge from a person, all you need to do is just click the X next to the badge. It's going to prompt you to remove it. You can just hit OK, and that person no longer has that badge. If you wanted to edit a person's name or ID number, you can just right-click on them and go Change Name/ID, and then just change anything about their name, and then change. And if you wanted to remove employees, you can just highlight the number of employees that you want to remove, and then either right click and delete employees, or you can just come down here and click this red delete button. And lastly, to filter out your list of employees, you can use this text box here and type in something about the person or their badge, such as their name or their ID number. Or if you wanted to search through badge numbers, you would click this search badge ID box and then type in their badge number, and it will filter out by that as well. Now the Profile Elements tab that I talked about earlier is different for every system. You may have crews, you may have jobs, you may have locations. I set up a demo here with those 3 levels. You may have something such as packs or varieties as well. It's the same idea in the end. And so in here, if I wanted to add, let's say, a new crew, I can add a brand new crew from scratch by clicking the Add Profile Elements button at the bottom left. First thing I would need to do is type in a name. So if I wanted to add a new crew, I would just type in crew 4, set the profile level, this would be a crew, and then it comes up with a badge ID for you. Now, if you're not interested in specifying a badge number, you can just leave the one that it gives you, and then just click add. And you'll see it adds crew 4 to the list here. One thing to note is that when you create a profile element from scratch, there will be no codes in any of these boxes. And you can see on my other crews, I have a code for the crew ID. So I would need to come in here and know to put a 4 in crew 4. However, if you wanted to create something in here that's just like something that you already have, you can right click on it and go clone element. And what this will do is copy all of the codes from this element onto the new one that you're creating. So we'll make a new crew called crew 5, click add, and you'll see it copied my code 3 here. And so I know that this needs to just change to a 5. Now this is a simple example. You may have many more codes that come along with your crews or jobs or locations. And it's an easy way of copying those over without having to worry about missing something. And just like with the crews, we can do the same thing with the job. We can create a brand new job by right-clicking on an existing job and clone element. And instead of weeding, we type in such as tractor driver, and then click add. And then over here, we have a few different codes that need to change. So instead of weeding, we'll put tractor, and this is how it appears in your accounting software. And then we'll give it the hourly rate and a piece rate if it has one. In this case, it doesn't. And just like with the employees tab, you can also search through your profile elements with this search box down here. Just type something about the badge, and it will filter the list out. And if you wanted to change the name of an existing profile element, you would just click on it here. And then in this description box, you can just type in a different description. And then when you click off of it, you'll see it changes here. Now there's a few other tabs here next to profile elements that I'm not going to get into just yet. These are more set up at the beginning of a system design. But one tab you may use is the All Badges tab. This shows you every single badge type that you have in the system, whether it's an employee, a profile element, a system badge of some kind. I won't get too much into this screen, but you can search through these just like you could with the other menus. And if you're looking for a specific badge ID and you don't know what type of badge it is, if it's an employee or if it's a profile element, you can just type in the number here and it will jump right to it and tell you what it is. And then if you decide you want to make an edit to it, you can just click the edit button here and it will bring you to the correct tab, and then you can make your edits. And if you do make changes in here that you want to keep, just be sure to click the Save Changes button at the top. If you hit close on accident, it's going to warn you that you have changes that aren't going to be saved. So you would hit cancel and then save. When data comes in from your devices, they will first go into the Edit Scans menu, and that way you can see each scan one by one as it came in. So we'll start by going into the Edit Scans menu. Over on the top left is each date that you have data for. So I have 3 days here that have data that came in from actual devices. So if I wanted to edit yesterday's data, I can just click on the date in the list, and it will load all the scans here in this area. If you wanted to load a day that doesn't already exist in here, you can use the calendar up at the top, and then choose a date to load. This is more used for adding in scans on your own when you did not get any scans in from the devices. So for right now, we want to edit the actual scans that came in from a real device. So I'll load the 4th again, and you'll see there's 3 different devices that come up on this day. And in this list, all 3 devices are intertwined with each other. So if you wanted to see just one at a time, you can either right-click the device in this list and go to select only that device name, or you can right-click on it here and then go select only that device name, whichever is easier for you. And there's only 5 scans here. There's a crew, a location, a job, and a login. And then later on, there's a logout all. So if we wanted to move something to a different time, let's say we want this logout all to be at 1 o'clock instead of at noon, we can just come in here, change this time to be 13, which is 1 o'clock p.m., and then click update. And then you'll see that it adds a marker here that this record was edited and the time moved to be 1 o'clock. And any of these times, if you're not sure what they are, you can just hover over them and it will tell you the actual 12-hour time instead of the 24-hour time. And then now that I made that change, I can continue to make changes or just click save, and you'll see it says a little 1 up here that I have one change waiting to be saved, so I'll just click save changes. And just like how I filtered out a single device, I can also filter out by text. If I only want to see jobs that have weeding in it, I can set this to select all devices again, and then do a search for weeding, and then click set filter. And you'll see that on these two devices I have weeding. And then from here, I can clear my filter, and I can select just a single device again. And if I didn't want to filter out the whole list, I can just search through the list by using this search box at the top. So if I'm looking for a job, I can just type in something like job and then hit enter, and it will just cycle through anything that is a job. And there's all kinds of filtering options here. You can search by certain text. You can ignore employees, which means that it will just hide employees when you set the filter. And then to clear your filters, you can just either set everything back to how it was or just click this clear filter button. If it turns out that somebody in the field selected the wrong job, you can just come in here, choose a different badge for tractor driver, and then click update. If you don't know where in this list something is, you can just use this search down here and then hit enter, and it will cycle through anything that matches that search criteria. And there are many more ways to edit data. If you wanted to add in an additional scan in here, if we needed another employee in weeding as well, we can just come down to our badge list, find a different employee, and to add this employee below Jose Chavez, we would just click the add below button. Just like adding below, if you wanted to add somebody above, you would just hit the add above button. If you decided that you needed to move some things around, it's as easy as selecting what it is you want to move, and then using these move arrows, and it changes the time along with it. So if tractor drivers, what they started their day in, and weeding came later, we can just use the move buttons to put things where we want. And then if weeding was supposed to be at 10 o'clock instead, we can just change the time here to 10 and then click update. And then just like with adding, we can delete records as well. Just click on the record or records and then click the delete button. Using the edit scans menu is just one way that you can edit data. You can also use the data entry screen as well. And what you can do in here is create scans from scratch, or if you wanted to be able to import all of that data from the edit scans menu into here, you can do that by just importing it from this list at the bottom. So we'll start a brand new day, and I'll open up a day for the first. So in my employee list here, I can choose an employee. I can set them with a start time, such as 8 o'clock, set them with an end time, such as 3 o'clock, which would be 15. And then down here, I can choose their crew, the location they worked in, and the job they did. And now, even though I didn't put total time here, it's going to look at the start time and end time and figure out what the total time is based on that. So I'll click the green add button. And here's that person now with their start time, end time, total time, and the profile they worked in. But now maybe we decided that this person also needs a lunch. So we can come into the lunch start time here, key that in, hit enter, and the lunch end time was at 12:30, hit enter. So now over here you can see there's a total lunch time of 30 minutes, and it also subtracted that 30 minutes from their total time as well, leaving them with 6.5 hours. So we could just save this now, and it will show in the report just like this. We can also create more people based on this one that we had set up. And so all we would have to do is just come in here and choose a different name, and then click the plus button as well. And you'll see it adds a copy of that person's line with this other employee. And then you can come in here and change anything you would want about this person. And then to add in another line for a person, you can just right click on that person and go to create continuation row. And what that's going to do is copy the row and put the start time and the end time at whatever this line ended at. So all I really have to do is come in here and change this end time to be maybe 16, which would give them an hour. And then to change the job, you would just come down here to where it said weeding, and change it to pruning, and then hit enter. But this is just editing scans in from scratch. So if you wanted to be able to import data that was actually done on the devices so you can edit it much easier in this window, all you would have to do is click on the date to import. So now because I made changes before, I'm going to save this. click on the 4th. It's prompting me if I want to import it. I'll hit OK. It's going to go through and generate the start time and times and total times of everything that was there. And then I can load this day. And here's my 3 devices that I originally had. I'll choose all of them for right now. And then here are all of those scans that I previously had. And just to kind of show you what's happening, if I leave this screen and go into the Edit Scan screen, you'll see the 4th is in here, but it's grayed out with a star next to it, saying that there is now data entry records. And it's grayed out because if I try to open it, nothing is in here anymore. It then moved it from this screen to the data entry screen. So if I want to make edits to this, I would now need to go into data entry and open it up in here to make those edits. And the reason it's prompting you to select the devices here is because multiple people at your company can be editing in the same day at the same time. So if I choose just one probe, such as this one, and select it, somebody else can come in here and edit one of the other probes at the same time that you are. And now that I have this loaded, I can make edits just as easy as I was adding them on the 1st. So I can change this person's start time to be 6 o'clock instead, and then save it. And it will reflect that in the report. And same thing with adding units. If this was a piecework job, I can just come into the units field and give them however many pieces they needed to get. So I can save this. And if you're ever unsure of what anything means in here, just hover over it. This purple icon means that we had imported this from real data. And just like in the Edit Scans menu, this orange icon means that this was edited. The keyless setup is a menu that will allow you to set up filtering on a device if your device has a screen. So for example, you can set only certain jobs to be available depending on the location that it's at. So if I click on location and then Aviana Ranch, I can say that only pruning and weeding are available at that ranch. And then at Weston Ranch, there's only tractor driver and weeding. And that way, when they're going through and setting the profile on the device, it will give them a much smaller list to choose from, and they can't accidentally choose the wrong thing. And then work order setups, you can choose a work order ID that will show up on your device, such as 10,001. The date range that it's going to be eligible for, so I can go from today to maybe a week from now, and then choose the crew, location, and job that are automatically going to be triggered when that work order gets used, and then add it to the list. And so what this does is on the device, you can choose work orders, key in work order 10,001, and the profile will be automatically set for you. And that way you can set the profiles here in the office, and then you can tell the foreman out in the field what work orders need to get done that day. And they won't have to go through and select their profile. They would just key in the number and it would choose it for them. And then the download device window will allow you to download a physical device to this computer. You may or may not have these devices, but if you do, you can just come in here and select the device that you want to be able to download, and then click Start Download. And it will go through and download the records off of that probe and add them into the system. And then lastly, there's a build and export window. And what building actually does is it takes whatever data you have for that day and generates the report files for them. So if you go in here and make any edits or you download new data, you would need to build the date to generate new report files for that day. So if I try to come in here and just view a day that I have never built yet, and I just run one of these reports, nothing's going to show up. The report files were never generated. So I'll close that, and I will now build the 4th, and then view the report. And if I run employee summary now, here's everything I have. And just to kind of prove to you how that works, if I leave this screen, go into data entry, open up the 4th, and then I'll make another change in here. I'll just add a brand new employee. Save this. And if I generate this report again, you'll see nothing changes. It's still looking at the report files from the last time that I had built this. So I would need to come back here and either leave this screen and go into the build and export screen again, or I can just right click on the date and click on build date. And I can build it right from here without having to leave this screen. And then now that it's built, I can come here and hit generate, and here's that new person that I added. And in addition to building from this screen, you can also view a brand new report from here as well. Just right click the date and go view reports, and it will spawn a new report window. You can also do this from the edit scans menu as well. Just right click a date and build or view. And then if I wanted to export to my accounting software, I can just click on export dates right here. And there are some certain options that you can set. If I click export options here, I can choose only certain devices that I want to send out, or certain employees, or maybe even certain profiles such as crews. And then at the very bottom, there's an option to finalize dates. Now, if you've made all of your edits that you want to make for a day, and you want to make sure that nobody comes in here and makes any more edits, you can click on a date or date range, and then click Finalize Dates. And it's going to prompt you, do you want to finalize this one date? You can just hit yes, and it puts a little lock here. And so with that lock now, if I try to come into data entry and open a finalized date, it says that my changes won't be saved. So it'll let me look at it, but I can't click the save button anymore. And I can't even build this date anymore. Nothing can be changed for that date. To be able to manage your users in the system, all you need to do is log in as either an administrative or manager level user, click your name, and then click User Management. To add a brand new user, just click Add User at the top left. Give this person a username. I'll just call it Test. You can give them a password if you want. You don't have to. You can leave it blank. And then set their user level. And there's 3 user levels. There's Standard, Manager, and Administrator. And then over on the right, we can choose what buttons are available to them. So for example, if this person isn't going to be editing work orders or downloading devices or setting up a key list, I can disable those 3 buttons so they can't accidentally go in there. And so then I'll add this user. I'll hit save, log out, and then I'll log in as that new test user and log in. And those 3 buttons are now grayed out. So we'll log out again and log back in our administrative user. We'll go back into user management, and maybe this test user is meant to be an administrator now. So I'll click that user, click on edit, set that user to be an administrator. Save it. If your system has more than one directory in it, you can change that by clicking on this change button at the bottom. So you can select the other company just by double clicking on it in the list. You can also set users to be locked into certain companies. So that test user, I want to always and only be in other company. I'll go back to user management, select my test user, edit, click on this box that says force directory, and force them into this other company. Save it, log out. So now logging into test is going to put me into other company automatically. It's going to tell me here that I'm locked into other company, and that change button now is gone.